Today on Beyond 6 Seconds.
It's important to make mistakes. It's important to fail to get the information. If you win, you learn. If you lose, you learn. I just think if people can learn how to stay in the moment, play with joy in their life, and have gratitude, then they will be living their best life, and life will be good enough for them.
Welcome to Beyond 6 Seconds, the podcast that goes beyond the 6-second first impression to share the extraordinary stories and achievements of everyday people. I'm your host, Carolyn Keel. On today's episode, I'm speaking with Kim Foster Carlson. Kim is an award-winning broadcast journalist and author of the book, Good Enough: How to Overcome Fear of Failure and Perfectionism to Live Your Best Life. Kim has spent the last 27 years as a member of the San Francisco Bay Area radio and television media. She's worked as a traffic reporter, news anchor, sports anchor, and talk show host. She's covered a wide range of stories from 9/11 to the tech boom in Silicon Valley. Kim, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Carolyn.
Please tell me about your new book, Good Enough, and what inspired you to write it?
Well, it started out really as just a book for my millennial children. I could sort of see my perfectionistic tendencies in their late teens, early 20s. They're both competitive athletes, my daughters. I could see that. And I knew, it was hard to talk to them about it. So I started just writing everything down. And I'm so used to writing short for radio for so many years that once I got to write as much as I wanted, I just loved it. And I ended up thinking I would write blogs or something, and it ended up being a whole book. It's not a very long book, which is good for millennials, but it really was meant for them. And then it started resonating with my family and friends, and they gave it to their family and friends. And then other people liked it. So it's been a really nice surprise that it has resonated with so many people.
That's fantastic. And why the subject of perfectionism?
I think it's this day and age with especially millennials and even younger children growing up, it's getting into the right school, getting the right job. And I think that you have to make mistakes. You have to experience failure to get to that next level. You hear all these entrepreneurs, and that's all they talk about is, Steve Jobs had really bad versions of the iPhone before he got successful. Elon Musk also with Tesla and other things like that. So I think that kids this day and age don't know how to fail. And I think that was really important for my kids. And when they swimming is a really hard sport. And there's a lot of failure in swimming.
Sure.
I mean, you're racing a clock and you're not always doing your best time. So I think that helped them. But I really saw that they were struggling with things, especially procrastination, because that's sort of the side effect of perfectionism is that you can't get started. You can't decide things. You have trouble making decisions. And I had found that in my own life, that was exactly what happened to me. And so I wanted to show them that it was okay to not be perfect and to make mistakes. And I ended up in a therapist chair, and she told me, there's not perfect or failure. What about being good enough? And I'm like, good enough? What are you talking about? This is just ridiculous, And she said, try this for a week, and so I did. And I sort of put the pressure off myself to be perfect. And I found that it worked. So I was like, I have to tell people about this because this is basically, saved my life.
Wow. So this is really rooted in your own personal experience with perfectionism. Certainly, you've achieved a lot of really amazing things in your career. And I would imagine that a lot of high-achieving people may also struggle with that worry that they're not good enough and that they have to be perfect and they have to keep raising the bar. So can you tell me a little bit about your own struggle with perfectionism?
I'm firstborn Capricorn. Both my parents were firstborn. So to me, it seemed like the pressure was on me because of that. I started in journalism where, you can't make mistakes, and very precise career. And then I was young. I was 26, I think, starting in sports because I loved sports. And I got called in. The news director said, we want to hire you, to do sports, but, you're a woman and you're doing sports. So people are going to listen to you a lot more carefully. So you cannot make any mistakes. And I was like, okay. So then, and obviously you're going to make some mistakes or stumble a little bit here or there. And I would just beat myself up. I was like, okay, this guy doesn't want any mistakes. Why? And it just threw me into sort of a perfectionistic tizzy, so to speak. until I realized that it's okay to be human. It's okay to make mistakes. In fact, it's important to make mistakes. It's important to fail to get the information. If you win, you learn. If you lose, you learn, so it's like, you can't think of it as all or nothing. And I think once I got out of that, and good enough was okay. That doesn't mean you sit on the couch and do nothing.
Right.
It's not like it gives you the excuse not to strive to have excellence and to pursue your dreams and do everything, but it's that you don't get paralyzed by the fear of failure.
Wow. So what was it throughout your career that encouraged you to think about the way you were looking at your own work as needing to be perfect? And how did you change your mindset? I would imagine that would be the hardest thing to do in isolation when you're just so used to having that pressure on your career to always be perfect. And that's what you feel you've always been told. So how have you achieved that?
Yeah, it is. It's very difficult. I had one news director, though. He said, it's okay to be human. People really like to hear those live radio mistakes, and you laugh about it, like you said, you say, oh, it's going to be cloudy today or cloudy tomorrow. You say the wrong day or something like that. And then, you laugh about it and it's okay. So people love that stuff. And I was like, they do? And he goes, yeah, it makes you human. And, you're on the radio for 5 hours straight. It's not like you're not going to make a mistake, but if you're always afraid, then you're not going to be yourself. You're going to be stifled and sort of not able to be human and have your personality come forth, because this was a really personality-based news talk station. So they wanted you to make mistakes and have fun and goof around and kind of have, and once I got into that, I relaxed and I didn't make as many mistakes because I wasn't so worried about it. So I think that can put you in that frozen, oh gosh, I'm not going to try this. This is insane. So I researched through the book and I saw that Smith College actually has a class in failure for all the freshmen, and they have to go to this. It's required, and they have to fail at something, and they have to try something they've never tried, that they most likely won't succeed in, and they have to experience failure and talk about what that means. They said it's been one of the most popular classes they've had there. It's really helped. I mean, you're going to, an Ivy League school and everyone's coming in and you get an A- and kids are just leaving school, I'm out, Yeah. I got an A-, I'm out. And the school was overwhelmed with these kids coming in with anxieties and all kinds of fears about failing. So they said, let's try this class. And it's really helped their students.
Yeah. And speaking of college and the younger generation, you wrote this book in part largely for millennials. And I think you had referred to them at one point as the most anxious generation. What is it about the millennial generation that there's such pressure internally or externally on being perfect?
Well, I think, the internet has a lot to do with it. They're the first generation really that grew up with the internet. And it's the comparison thing. It's Instagram. Oh, their life looks better than my life. They're prettier than I am, or they have better clothes, or that kind of thing. So it's sort of the comparison thing. It was the first generation with everyone gets a trophy, and that whole thing that no one can fail. So, and when we grew up, it was like, no, the person that's the fastest swimmer gets the trophy and you don't, and I mean, it was kind of brutal, but it was honest. So I think they haven't grown up with failure, especially here in the Bay Area of San Francisco, such a high achieving tech generation, and Stanford and Cal are here. And there's so much pressure on these kids to perform. Instead of letting them fail at a lot of things, figure out what they want to do and be okay with not being perfect. So I think I wrote it for them, but I think it's resonated with my generation as well, sort of the end of the baby boomer generation, because, we were just striving to be perfect as well, to have the perfect job. We were the ones that were, okay, we can have it all. We can have job, children, husband, career, everything.
Right.
And I think that was difficult as well, to try to live up to those expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. The other question I had is, how did you decide that now was the right time to write this book?
I was working in radio full time and I went back to part time. So I had a little more free time, so to speak. And it was almost like it poured out of me. I would sit down and 3 hours later, I'd be like, okay, where am I? What am I doing? I've been just writing, and I think it was something I just had. It was like I had to do it. I have no idea why. And then when it happened, everybody's like, you wrote a book? I'm like, yeah, I'm really not sure how. I just had to write. It was almost like it was something that I just had to do. And then I've been talking about it more and more and traveling and talking to millennials and everything. And that's really helped to solidify, okay, this is good. Why I wrote it. It was really to help them be okay with their lives and not to get into that perfectionistic whirlwind that we get into and end up thinking that their life is a failure at the age of 26 or so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great guidance for people. And it's funny, particularly if I'm reading LinkedIn, there's a lot of stories about entrepreneurs who talk about the importance of failing and failing fast and doing this. But at the same time, there's a lot of sensational stories that almost seem like overnight successes. In some ways, it makes success seems like it should come very easily and come to everyone right away. And I think it's important for people to really think about, it's not about being perfect. Things do take time. They take work. They can be messy, but it's all part of the learning process. And I think that's an important thing for people to keep in mind.
Oh, definitely. All of your life, you get information, and you get actually more helpful information when you don't succeed than when you succeed. I think it's the comedian Tiffany Haddish.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody said, oh, you're just an overnight sensation. She's like, I've been around forever. What are you talking about? It's just nobody knew about her. But I think it is. It's up and down. It's messy. You learn along the way. And so I think I just wanted my generation and also the millennials to know that it's all going to be okay. That it's all going to work out in its own messy way. And it's okay to try things and fail at them. I'm a swimmer. I cannot do anything on land. And I tried and tried. I did 2 triathlons and some other things, but I can't run. But I'm not going to not do anything that I'm not good at. So I'm always trying new Pilates or weightlifting or all these things that I'm not very good at. And I get in the pool and like, and everybody's like, it looks so easy for you. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to rest on the easy. I want to try. And if I fail, I get up right again and I try again on something. It's almost like a resiliency kind of thing that this book helps you to become who you are meant to be without having to go through that perfectionistic craziness that I went through. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also if you don't try things that are unfamiliar, where there's the risk of failure, then you never really know what you're good at, because it's not always obvious that you have a particular talent in a specific area unless you try something, and it might be uncomfortable at first. And I think
Exactly. My daughter was a swimmer as well. And she's like, I want to try golf. And I was like, okay. So I took her to my golf instructor, and within 2 lessons, she could hit the ball 90 million yards or whatever. But trying to have her putt, she couldn't putt at all. She goes, I'm not doing this game. I can't putt. I go, well, you're going to have to practice the things you're not good at, to become good at them. And she's like, oh, okay. It's like, and they want everything now. There's, and we are that way too. It's like, oh my gosh, there's no Wi-Fi or the Wi-Fi is slow. It's like, we didn't have Wi-Fi a few years ago, and I think it was one of the comedians says, everything's amazing and no one cares. It's like, you can get from New York to Los Angeles in 5 hours. And it used to take 3 months and half the people died, and it's like, no one realizes that we're just living in an age of such wealth and independence, and anybody can work from anywhere. I'm talking to you from Walnut Creek, California. It's just, I think we almost have it too easy. Everybody's like, oh yeah, I had to dial a phone. You had to dial a phone?
Yep.
And I had a cord and it only went so far.
That's right. I remember when the modems first came out and we used to have to wait 5 minutes for a picture to download, and we just sat there in amazed wonder and watched it download. Now it's like, why isn't my connection running?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything's amazing and nobody cares. So especially here in the Bay Area where everybody's tech savvy and has the latest tech gadget too. I think we missed a little bit of, okay, let's just wait for this, and slow down and enjoy life, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. What impact are you hoping that Good Enough will have on your readers?
Oh, gosh. I just hope it will help them try new things, fail at things, enjoy life. I talk about gratitude in the book, too, I've started this before I wrote the book, but I write down 3 things every morning that I'm grateful for, and 1 person I can thank that day by phone or text or email. And it's really changed my life because some days you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm just grateful that, I have milk for my cereal or something. But other days you're like, I'm so grateful for my family and my little puppy dogs that come and greet me every day. I hope that people will get out of that. They too can have a sense of gratitude and a sense of joy. I talk about Steph Curry in the book quite a bit because he plays for the Warriors here in the Bay Area, and he plays with such joy that impacts everyone around him. And his coach said, he was not afraid of failure early on, and that's how he was able to succeed. He'd miss 5 shots in a row, and they'd be like, I'm not losing any confidence. I'm going to make the next 5. And he did, I just think if people can learn how to stay in the moment, play with joy in their life, and have gratitude, then they will be living their best life, and life will be good enough for them.
Oh, that's awesome. And your book is out now, right? Did it come out earlier this year?
It came out in February, March, yeah.
Ah, fantastic. Have you gotten any particularly memorable reviews or pieces of feedback from readers that you'd like to share?
My first road trip to go out on the road and sell books was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I flew there by myself, drove from Chicago to Milwaukee, and I met these 2 women from Good Morning Milwaukee or Good Day Milwaukee. And they were the 2 nicest people. They were younger than me, but they were moms. And before we went on the air, we're sitting on their couch, and they're like, oh, and they have such, Milwaukee accents. And they're like, oh, we just loved your book. That Steph Curry, he plays with joy. And I just know that Brett Favre, because they're, from the Green Bay Packers, he plays with joy too. And we just so resonated with da-da-da. And they had kids that were athletes that had read the book. And I was like, okay, they actually read the book, because I interview authors quite a bit and I don't always read the book. I was like, good thing it was short. So they wrote it. But I mean, it's like, I was just overwhelmed I flew to the middle of the country and these people had read my book,
Wow, that's great. Yeah, just the reach and the impact you can have. That's really exciting.
Yeah, it was a fun trip. And I'm so used to interviewing people and asking the questions. To have it reversed is a little out of my comfort zone. But I'm like, I'm going to try to not fail. But if I do, I'll do better next time.
Well, you're doing great. And it's just amazing to hear, the story of your own struggle with this issue around perfectionism, and then the way that you're able to put your thoughts down and help inspire others to find their passions and fail more often so that they can really find out what their skills are and what they're good at.
Well, thank you. I'm grateful that I was able to come on and talk with you about it today. It's been a labor of love, and I'm hoping there's another book in me somewhere and it'll just pop out one day.
Fantastic. So how can people get in touch with you to learn more about and buy Good Enough?
Well, it's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, wherever you buy your books. It's under Good Enough, Kim Foster Carlson. And then I also have a website, kimfostercarlson.com, and a Facebook page of Good Enough. And we post a lot of things on there. A lot of people send me pictures of them where they're reading the books. And it's been a really fun group. The Facebook group has enjoyed hearing their stories about perfectionism and overcoming it and how the book has helped them.
That's great. Really great to get that feedback from readers. As we close out, is there anything else that you'd like our listeners to know, or any other way that they can help or support you?
No, just that if they could read the book, that would be great. But also the Facebook page, and I have an Instagram. They're all under Good Enough. And we talk a lot about different things on there. There's a lot of content, free content on there. Just enjoying sort of the community of people that have sort of rallied around the book and helped it become a success.
That's awesome. And I'll put the links to your website and your social media and where people can buy the book in the show notes of the podcast so that people can refer to it easily too.
Oh, thank you very much.
Sure. So, wow, Kim, thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. I'm really excited about your book, and I'm wishing you continued success with the book and more readers and just having even more impact on people all around the country. So thank you for being my guest.
Oh, thank you, Carolyn. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Beyond 6 Seconds. Please help us spread the word about this podcast. Share it with a friend. Give us a shout out on your social media, or write a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast player. You can find all of our episodes on our website, www.beyond6seconds.com. Until next time.